Welcome. We'll now hear from the NATO Secretary General Rutte.
Yes, good afternoon. We ran a little bit late, so thank you for waiting. Today we concluded 2 busy days of meetings with NATO defense ministers and our close partners. Strengthening our deterrence and defense is this alliance's top priority, because keeping our 1 billion people safe is NATO's most sacred duty. And that is why we are ramping up our defense industrial capacity, strengthening our supply chains, investing in new defense capabilities, and harnessing new technologies. We are manufacturing new ships, combat vehicles and jets, and producing more ammunition and artillery. But with supply chains increasingly vulnerable to compromise, we must become more self-sufficient, so that we remain ready and able to respond to threats across all domains at all times. Today, Allied defense ministers have agreed a new NATO initiative on standardization. Standards are critical to our ability to fight together, and more robust standards will help reduce defense costs. As part of this initiative, we will be speeding up the development of NATO standards, enhancing their implementation rate and expanding their scope to include new innovative military capabilities. We must make the most of our unique ability to act together, all 32 of us, because that is what gives our alliance strength beyond the sum of its parts. We will have more to say on this at the February Defense Ministerial. Allies agreed that air and missile defense remains an alliance priority. This is all the more important given Russia's war against Ukraine, which has resulted in multiple NATO airspace violations, including just yesterday in Romania. Let me express NATO's solidarity with Romania and also commend the Romanian authorities and SACEUR for their quick and effective response to this incident. We will continue to increase surveillance, exchange information, and coordinate individual and collective responses. We have also recently significantly increased our presence on NATO's eastern flank and strengthened NATO's air policing mission. Allies plan to acquire thousands of air defense and artillery systems and many hundreds of modern combat aircraft, mostly 5th generation F-35s. Allies are buying 1,000 Patriot missiles to refill their stocks. Earlier this month, air, maritime and land forces from 12 allied nations gathered in Greece to exercise sophisticated high-end air defense tactics as part of NATO's new exercise, Ramstein Flag 24. And the new Aegis Ashore missile defense base in Poland boosts our ability to defend against the growing global threat of ballistic missiles. Russia remains the most significant and direct threat to the security of the Allies. And Putin is resorting to increasingly irresponsible rhetoric. Moscow may be loud, but NATO is strong. In a more uncertain world, it is vital that we continue to modernize our capabilities and exercise together to keep our conventional and nuclear forces strong. Just this Monday, NATO's annual nuclear exercise, Steadfast Noon, began with more than 60 aircraft taking part in training flights. These are routine, recurrent exercises far from Russia's borders that do not involve live weapons. The fundamental purpose of NATO's nuclear capability is to preserve peace, prevent coercion, and deter aggression. Today, at the meeting, we also discussed NATO's operations in the Western Balkans and Iraq. In Kosovo, allies continue to work together to ensure our KFOR mission has the forces and resources it needs to maintain a safe and secure environment for all. In the Middle East, NATO mission Iraq continues to be an important contributor to stability. to ensure that Iraqi security forces are able to fight terrorist groups and provide a safe environment for Iraq's economy and society to prosper. NATO is also deepening its political dialogue with Iraq, because we have a shared interest in stable, secure and a prosperous Middle East. On Ukraine, as you know, we are establishing NATO security assistance and training for Ukraine, and we expect this command to become fully operational in the coming month. And we are well on our way to fulfilling our pledge to provide Ukraine 40 billion euros of military support within the next year. We will continue to stand by Ukraine, as we stand by the right of every nation to live in freedom, sovereignty and security. Supporting Ukraine is not an act of charity. It is also an investment in our own security. Because the cost of letting Putin have his way would be much higher than the cost of supporting Ukraine. Ukraine's fight is our fight. And with that, I'm ready to take your questions.
Okay, we'll start with Reuters, second row.
Thank you. SecGen, Ukraine is facing what will likely be the harshest winter of the war, with huge parts of the energy infrastructure destroyed by Russian attacks. Can you tell us what else NATO will put on the table to help Ukraine through the winter, please?
Yes, here allies are, and also the European Union, I might add, are working hard on winterization. And you are absolutely right that the energy infrastructure is in a difficult situation, and that will have an impact on the average Ukrainians during winter. And we want to minimize that impact and help the Ukrainians do that. So that is done through NATO allies. Also the EU is helping here. Of course, what NATO is primarily focused on is making sure that the training takes place, that massively military aid gets into Ukraine. But you're absolutely right, also winterization has to be one of our priorities.
Okay, Jon Happ, at the back.
Thank you, Binna from Yonhap News Agency. Secretary General, the South Korean spy agency today announced that North Korea has decided to send large-scale troops to Russia, and including special forces. I know that yesterday you said you have no evidence, but since the situation has changed overnight, I want to ask you this question again. Thank you.
Well, again, obviously, we are in close contact with all our partners, particularly, of course, the Republic of Korea. Yesterday, we have been meeting here with the 4 IP4 partners, including Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Korea. So we will certainly have that conversation with them to get all the evidence on the table. So at this moment, our official position is that we cannot confirm reports that North Koreans are actively now, as soldiers, engaged in the war effort. But this, of course, might change. And anyway, even if North Korea is not physically there at the battlefield, then still they are helping to fuel Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine in every way they can, and together with others like Iran. China is playing a role here, obviously, and of course Russia itself.
Okay, we'll go to Interfax. Third row. Interfax, Ukraine.
Thank you so much. Question regarding yesterday NATO-Ukraine Council. As I do understand, it was first discussion regarding Zelensky victory plan with first point as an invitation to NATO membership. So I would like to know how this discussion went, what kind of temperature was in the room. Somebody said yes, somebody say let's wait, and what will happen next? Thank you.
Yes, I must say that the main focus on the discussion was to get massive military aid into Ukraine from, of course, the armed forces here in the West, so allies providing that military aid to Ukraine. We have seen the announcement yesterday, Australia, the US, so very recently, but Germany a couple of days before, and many other allies still providing massive aid into Ukraine, and that will continue. And as I said yesterday, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin would be wrongly advised thinking that we will give up on this. No, we will continue doing this as long as is necessary. And that was the main focus of the debate last night. Obviously, we all know that Ukraine will become a member of NATO. So the question is exactly when and when the invitation will take place. But that was not the main issue of the debate last night.
Okay, we'll go to NPR, fourth row.
For Deutsche Welle today. Thank you. Mr. Secretary General Terry Schultz, yesterday there had not yet been confirmation of the death of the Hamas leader. Today that has happened. You spoke about terrorism in your opening remarks. This is a big concern for NATO. Has there been an assessment as to how this death will impact the fight for terrorism that could very well affect NATO allies, if not the alliance's own efforts? What is your assessment of the
Well, let's not forget that this man was instrumental, basically the main architect behind the attack, the terrorist attack of Hamas on Israel on the 7th of October 2023, which cost 1,200, 1,300 people their lives, which was a full terrorist onslaught attack on Israel. So, as I said yesterday, I will not personally miss him. Obviously, there is the wider question of terrorism. NATO is, of course, vigilant in making sure that the alliance stays safe, and terrorism is a particular point of attention for the alliance. We are not involved as an alliance in the Middle East. Obviously, we take a careful look at what is happening because of our NATO mission in Iraq, but that is not playing a role there in the fighting taking place now, let's say Israel and Gaza and Lebanon. But still, we want our troops to be safe, so that is a particular point of concern. So in that sense we are. And our allies, obviously, are on a day-to-day basis navigating the crisis. But again, NATO itself is not playing a role there.
Okay, we'll go to Fuji TV, please.
Thank you very much. Fuji Television, Japan, Yamagishi. Two questions about the IP4. Yesterday, the Japanese minister shared and introduced about the situation around Taiwan, about the Chinese military exercises. Hearing this, what is the message that NATO is sending to the region or to the specific countries? And secondly, what are your plans for the next steps with the IP4? Are you planning to invite the leaders of the countries? Please share your plans. Thank you.
Yes, the positive of having this relationship between the Euro-Atlantic, so NATO, and our partners in the Indo-Pacific is that we can exchange information, that we understand at a more detailed level what is happening. Because we cannot think that what is happening here is not impacting on the Indo-Pacific, and what's happening in the Indo-Pacific has a direct impact on what is happening here in the Euro-Atlantic. So obviously it was extremely useful to listen to our partners from New Zealand, Australia, Japan, Korea, South Korea, and basically understanding better. This was not just about China or Taiwan. This was about all the developments in the region playing out, including what is happening now with North Korea, which was a particular focus, of course, of the Korean representative yesterday. And that is, I think, the strength. So, and therefore we want to expand on this. And it comes to your second question. I think the positive here is that the meeting was the message. The fact that the leaders were coming was the message itself. And now increasingly, we are moving beyond that, and we are getting to the content part. For example, industry, an issue for the partners in the Indo-Pacific as well as here. How to ramp up industry production, innovation, and how to deal with cyber threats. So all these issues we decided we want to work closely together on. We are already in many cases, like with Australia and Japan, and others with Korea and New Zealand. So that was very positive. And yes, we will continue this, and I expect leaders and defense ministers and others to participate regularly in events in NATO.
Okay, AFP, please.
Good morning, Secretary General Olivier Beau from AFP. I would like to go back on the dinner last night. Are you satisfied with the answer given by the allies to the President Zelensky victory plan? Did you get the unity you promised yesterday to President Zelensky, unity of the allies, of course? Thank you.
There is total unity in this alliance that we want Ukraine to prevail. We want Putin not to get his way, because this is about our values, about our collective safety. And for all these reasons, we will continue making sure that Ukraine has what it needs to, in terms of military material, goods, etc., all that aid getting into Ukraine to fight off the Russians and this Russian attack. That doesn't mean that yesterday we discussed line item by line item the whole victory plan. That was not a debate last night. We respectfully took note of it. We all agree, I believe, I didn't take a poll in the room, that it is an important signal that the Ukrainian government and the president have aligned themselves on this victory plan. This will no doubt be part of the ongoing discussions with Ukraine. But the main issue last night was how to make sure that nobody in Moscow might think that we want to slow down or whatever. No, that we want to ramp up industry production, to replenish here and get more aid into Ukraine, that we want to support the Ukrainian defense production capacity, because there is a huge capacity in Ukraine themselves to produce, for example, drones and other things. And to keep, of course, all the support from the alliance in terms of training, etc., ongoing. Therefore, Wiesbaden and SETU, the command we are setting up, crucially important.
Okay, over to Swedish radio, next to AFP.
Mr. Secretary General, why not give Ukraine invitee status as a future NATO member comparing with Sweden and Finland? And I even asked you yesterday morning about Middle East. Could the killing of Sinwar lead to something more worse or better in the context of the NATO member state?
Yeah, on your second question, we follow, of course, the developments in the Middle East extremely careful. And we are highly worried about the loss of life, and not about this one gentleman, because there I cannot feel sorry for him. But of course, the many people losing their lives at this moment in Gaza, in Israel, in Lebanon is heartbreaking. And therefore, allies, as I said before, they are trying to do whatever they can to navigate this crisis. But NATO is not part of what is ongoing now in the Middle East. We are a transatlantic alliance, and as Jens Stoltenberg said before, we cannot solve every problem in the world. We really have to concentrate on the things we are working on. And through our mission in Iraq, of course, we are in the region, and we are very much looking at the safety of our troops there and their ability to be effective in supporting the Iraqi government in building up their defense capability, etc. On the other question, as I said before, Ukraine will be member of NATO, and I will applaud that day. And obviously, including what she said in Washington, the irreversible path to membership, which was a considerable increase in language, in signaling to the Ukrainian people that their future will be in NATO. There will be the discussion amongst allies and with Ukraine on the path towards NATO. But when you look at what is happening practically, the interoperability, the JTAC being set up in Poland, which will help with the interoperability between Ukraine and NATO. The bilateral security agreements of many allies helping Ukraine on their path to NATO membership. The 40 billion pledge. The setting up of the command in Wiesbaden. This all collectively constitutes, yes, a sort of pathway, a bridge to membership. So that leaves only the question, which still politically is an important question, and for many other reasons, of the exact step-by-step approach towards membership. And that is something we are ongoingly debating, of course, also amongst ourselves.
Okay, I'll give a final question to TVR Moldova at the back there.
Thank you. Karina Romishir, Moldova, Republic of Moldova. Secretary General, in light of Moldova's October 20th referendum on EU accession and regional security concern, what steps is NATO considering to enhance defense in Eastern Europe, especially in the Republic of Moldova? Thank
yes,
you.
of course, we are working closely with Maya Sandu's government. Can I personally applaud her leadership of what she is doing and trying to build a stable democracy in Moldova, which is able also to protect against all the particularly hybrid interference which is taking place from Russia. Hybrid interference, including Moldova, we see with all allies, but also with Moldova. Russia clearly has a goal here, which is to somehow derail Moldova's pro-European trajectory. And we are helping them in every way we can in building their defense capabilities, helping them in countering disinformation campaigns and everything else to make sure that they are as strong as possible to counter this and that free elections can take place. And that Moldova can develop as a free society, which I really wish for you will happen.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.